John in Chicago.
Hi, Russell, Tracie. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Fine, thanks.
Good, yeah. I called about a month ago, man, and I was hoping to get Matt to continue our discussion.
Sorry to disappoint you.
What's that?
Sorry to disappoint you.
Well, no problem. That was an interesting discussion with Dr. Poole.
Dr. Poole. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was really interesting. He said that he doesn't use his position to force his beliefs down his patients' throats, which I commend him for, because that's a position that he really could abuse his power. And whether it's a religious psychiatrist, a theist psychiatrist, or an atheist psychiatrist, both of them should respect the patient, and I commend them for that.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I think
yes.
a person in a position of power should not be in the business of pushing a religious belief on the people they're in power over, and that is true whether it's a psychiatrist and a patient, or a teacher and a student, or a military commander and their underlings.
Very, very true. I agree. I commend him for that. But I actually had a question for him. I'm sad you let him go. I was going to pick his brain about a couple things. But
one of the reasons we let him go was because there were no on-topic calls.
Yeah. I kind of had a different topic, but I was so interested in the call that I had a couple questions pop up.
Well, why don't you throw it out there, and maybe I can post an answer at the blog if I can get him to answer you.
Sure. I was going to ask him. Personally, prayer works for me. I do believe in a creator, and I've had a lot of hardships in my life, and it wasn't until I found prayer that I really found myself. And I don't consider myself delusional in the least bit, so I was going to ask him, in his professional opinion, his clinical opinion, what is wrong with prayer, and what is wrong with the belief in a creator from a...
I imagine if he were still on the line,
he wouldn't think there was a problem with that. I mean, unless it was causing you a problem, he would say this is totally your call. I mean,
you both said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he wouldn't interfere with that, and if you wanted, so if you went to his practice and you said, I really appreciate what you're doing to me as a psychiatrist, like your help with me as far as the psychotherapy and as far as the drugs or whatever you might be using in his psychiatric practice. If you were to say, I really benefit from prayer and I would like some prayer support, he would refer you for prayer support. And that's what he was saying, that when he worked in underprivileged areas, one of the things he did was refer people to different religious, traditions based on what they were affiliated with. He went ahead and sent them to people in the community that could help them with that. So he's totally for, if it helps you and it's not, causing a problem or contributing to your problem and you find it helpful, he would refer you to somebody that could support you in that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Although I was wondering, when you say prayer works, are you basically just saying, it makes you feel happy, cheers you up, takes your mind off your problems?
Well, I think he's saying it's support. He feels supported by it. Is that right, John?
I do, and I do feel that it helps, because I do believe that it's direct communication with our Creator. I think that people abuse prayer when they say, well, God, give me this, give me that, for petty things, things that aren't really morally driven. Like, I asked for him to open my mind and stuff, to possibilities.
No, I understand.
I don't ask him for get me out of this situation, I don't ask for that.
I understand. All right, but you have a question about
DNA. I just wanted to say where we would disagree with you on that is obviously we would say that prayer has no more or less psychological effect than meditation, or I like to play video games to unwind. I mean, anything that you can do to enjoy yourself and improve your mental state is going to improve your overall health. And where we would disagree is that God is doing stuff for you.
Right. I don't think that's what prayer is. I don't think God reaches down and personally, answers your beck and call. But I think that if you open yourself up it's possible, but that's just my belief. But my
Right.
question for the doctor was, he says that he doesn't believe in prayer, and Tracie was like, well, I'd be horrified if somebody asked me to pray with them. So my question is, like, what is so horrifying about that idea?
Because if I'm in the doctor's office, that's outside of their purview of their professional boundary. They have no business integrating that into, if I go to a physician, for example, like a surgeon, I didn't go there to have some sort of a religious integrated thing with that person. I went there for a surgery. He does surgery. He does not do prayer. He doesn't do religion. And that's what Dr. Poole is talking about, is those boundaries, those professional boundaries. It's like if I felt like I might be helped by a massage, I wouldn't expect my surgeon to administer it. Now, if I were at a therapist's office and he felt like maybe some stress relief type things would be helpful, don't you think it would be kind of weird if he said, would you like me to give you a neck rub? As opposed to saying, well, why don't we find somebody that can do a massage for you?
I think maybe what might be clearer to John, I mean, we were talking earlier about people in power being in a position of pushing their religious beliefs on people. What would you think, I mean, when you say, let me pray with you, when the doctor says, let me pray with you, they're promoting a specific point of view. Suppose that you went to a surgeon and he said to you, let's pray to Allah and face toward Mecca because the Lord Muhammad is going to heal you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that bug you a little bit?
What about when they give clinical diagnoses and prescribe medicines?
Well, that's in
promoting
their
a particular point of view.
Well, no, you went to them for that. I mean, that's their specialty. That's what they do. That's the point. Prayer is not what they do. Surgery is what they do. Mental health care within the boundaries of, like he's saying, this is a science-based approach. They are qualified in a certain type of treatment that is not religion. And
but he did admit that it isn't fail-proof. He did say that.
No, yeah, he didn't say that his treatments are perfect. What he said is that he is not a religious provider. That's not what he does.
Right, I understand that. But in contrast, it's like, if someone comes to him and says, well, I'm depressed,
right,
he can choose to say, well, I think that this medicine, antidepressant, might help you.
Right.
Or he could choose to say, well, let's try different therapy other than medicine. So
only if that therapy is within the professional bounds of what he is qualified and trained to do. He cannot offer something outside of that.
Would you be okay with a doctor just deciding to say a Muslim prayer over you? Or sacrifice something?
It's irrelevant. It's one of the things that Poole was talking about. I mean, let's say that I went to a psychiatrist and I said, I think I would benefit by having sex with you, doctor. I mean, shouldn't he tell me no? Don't you agree that he should say no to that? So the idea is the doctor has to have boundaries of things that he does do and things he doesn't do and things he will provide and things he won't provide. And it wouldn't matter if he thought that a sexual encounter might be helpful to me. He's not the one to provide that. He has a boundary as a professional healthcare provider that does not go into practicing religion. It does not go into sexual behavior. It does not go into inappropriate touching. One of the things that they talked about was a psychiatrist, for example, may, in certain instances, be perfectly within his boundaries to do a rectal exam. If you tried to do that to somebody socially, that would be horribly inappropriate, right? To just do that in a social setting. But in a social setting, you can give hugs and kisses. But in that psychiatrist's office, that is a breach of boundary. So he can't hug and kiss his patient, but he can digitally examine their rectum. So, I mean, you have to look at the idea of what is and is not appropriate within the context of what they practice. It's not about, well, prayer is common or hugging is common. He's not allowed to do that. He can't violate those boundaries.
Well, I'm not disputing that on the grounds of professionalism. Like, I agree. If a patient comes to him and says, will you pray with me, and he doesn't feel comfortable with that and that's outside of his realm of science, I don't see anything wrong with that. But my question was, why does he feel that his view of the way patients should be treated is in some way superior to that of alternative view.
Well, no, he didn't say it was superior to an alternative view. He said, this is what I do, this is what I'm qualified to do. Outside of it, that's not what my profession is. Actually are boundaries to what he should and shouldn't do. So, for example, there's something called the General Medical Council Guidance on Boundaries in Ethics, and one of those is you should not normally discuss your personal beliefs with patients unless those beliefs are directly relevant to the patient's care. You must not impose your beliefs on patients or cause distress by the inappropriate or insensitive expression of religious, political, or other beliefs or views. Equally, you must not put pressure on patients to discuss or justify their beliefs or the absence of them. So in his profession, there's boundaries that he is expected to adhere to. And some of those boundaries have to do with you don't talk about your beliefs with your patient. And if you ask a doctor to pray with you, what if that doctor is a different religion? What if they pray with you and then suddenly afterwards you're like, I feel compromised by this? And he gives an example of one patient that did bring forward a complaint, who did ask a doctor to pray with him. The doctor agreed to it. They prayed together, and then afterward the patient regretted it and felt uncomfortable seeing the doctor anymore. The doctor should not have done that just because the patient asked for it. They're mentally ill.
Yeah, I agree with that. The professionalism should be upheld. Mm-hmm. But, I was more concerned with his personal opinion on it. Why does he feel? And, I'd like to ask you, what is your quarrel with alternative means and, theism in general? Why are you an atheist?
Because I'm not convinced that a God exists.
Well, couldn't you be agnostic about it?
You could be agnostic atheist. You could be agnostic theist. You could say, I don't know if there's a God or not, but I believe there is one. Or you could say, I don't know if there's a God or not, I don't believe there is one. I just haven't seen compelling evidence, so I don't believe in it. If somebody says, is it possible? I don't know. I don't know if it's possible or not. I don't even know how I would assess that.
Well, it's like atheism these days. You guys hold conferences. You guys have your own shows.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a religion in itself, the way you guys practice it and promote it.
Well, what does religion mean to you?
To me, organized religion is a group of people with the same set of beliefs who...
Well, we already fail because atheism doesn't have a set of beliefs.
But a political party would be a religion then?
No, I think religious beliefs pertain to the origin of life, and I think religious beliefs rather refer to the origin of life and that kind of thing, not political affiliation.
Right. Well, normally religious beliefs refer to supernatural origins of life. But I mean, if you want to define the word religion so broadly that it just means a group of people getting together and agreeing on stuff, then at some point I could just say, okay, we're a religion, so what?
We're agreeing on the nature, cause, and purpose of the universe. You guys believe...
But we don't.
I couldn't say you guys, but atheists in general believe that there was no creator, that everything's natural.
But that doesn't mean that they agree on how it was created. I mean, we have a physicist in our audience who disagrees with Big Bang, so... I mean, I don't think, and I have no idea how the universe came to be. I'm completely clueless. I would be the worst physics student in the world, and so I am completely unable to
Don't sell yourself so short.
Well, I would be unable to have an informed enough opinion to actually put forward, my defense of the justification for the production of the universe. I mean, that's way beyond my ken.
Are you an evolutionist?
Huh?
Are you guys evolutionists?
Well, if you're asking me, do I think evolution occurs? Yes.
Do you believe humans evolved from some kind of chimp?
I think currently that's pretty much the best model out there.
So yes.
So the intelligent design model doesn't even...
Well, the intelligent design model doesn't even rise to a scientific hypothesis.
Yeah, I mean, the thing
it's been pretty thoroughly discredited when it tried to enter the scientific sphere. So it's basically the same set of religious superstitions as creationism.
I guess my point, too, though, is...
It's got peer-reviewed articles in work right now. So
yeah, they create their own journals that are outside of mainstream peer-reviewed journals and basically pat each other on the back.
Journals. Stephen Meyer, author of Signature in the Self, he's published peer-reviewed work advocating intelligent design. So it is scientific. It just seems like you guys would rather the other explanation rather than that one.
No, I mean, Behe published some stuff too, and he was a big proponent of irreducible complexity, and the university that he works for has published a big disclaimer at his page saying we don't accept this as science. I mean,
is there a reason why they don't?
Yeah, because it got shredded by the peers in the peer review. I mean, peer review.
I mean, can you say how?
Well, if you want to, if you'd like,
I have read Behe's book, as a matter of fact. He makes a whole lot of unsupported. What?
Behe, B-E-H-E. It's B-E-H-E, Michael Behe. And if you go to YouTube, there's actually a good NOVA presentation on intelligent design on trial. That was a NOVA program.
I've seen that, but I'm asking, like...
Behe was the main scientist who testified on behalf of intelligent design, so he was the one that was being discussed in that particular program.
Right, but intelligent design as a science wasn't on trials. The implications of...
Right, because intelligent design, by and large, is not taken seriously by almost any scientist. There are a handful who who accept it for basically religious reasons, but it has not penetrated. And the fact that like a handful of papers out of hundreds of thousands that are published every year are trying to promote intelligent design in no way makes that part of mainstream science.
Well, the
so are you saying popular opinion makes it untrue?
No. The peer review...
Well, that's basically what you're saying.
No, it's not. That's not what he's saying. The peer review has...
more people believe this than that, so therefore...
He's talking about people who are qualified to have a professional opinion on the biological data. So these aren't just people, right? He's not making an argument from popularity where it's like, well, more people think this than that. He's saying that the people who are actually expert in this field, who actually understand this data and know how to best interpret it, are rejecting this idea and accepting another one. And that matters.
Who don't reject it and who do accept it. So it just comes down to what do you believe?
Well, no, because the consensus of a scientific field makes a difference. It's like if you hire a plumber to come look at your sink and he says, I recommend blowing it up, and to get this clog out, and you bring in like another 10 plumbers and they're all just like, no, I would just put a snake down the drain. I mean, at some point you have to look at it and say...
Do you have any argument or evidence or article refuting intelligent design?
Wait a minute. The thing to me is that there's no need to refute something that hasn't been demonstrated. So, for example,
have you not read the articles? Read the book?
Please show me the mechanism, intelligent design, okay? There's a mechanism called evolution that can be demonstrated. We can actually breed...
Evolution is not a mechanism.
It is a mechanism. It has to do with breeding populations in order to produce specific phenotypic changes in those populations through reproduction. So you have
Evolution only explains what happens once you've got a self-replicating molecule.
That's fine. You're talking, and that's what you're discussing. You're talking about evolution. Saying what evolution describes is fine. That's what evolution describes. You asked me if I adhere to that. I'm saying yes, because I've seen the mechanism work. I know that it exists, right? That I've seen animals in population. I've seen populations change because of breeding data, like data that's transferred because of breeding, that ends up making a change to the population overall. And so I know that evolution exists. It can be demonstrated as a working mechanism that we understand completely. What I'm saying...
Microevolution,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The mechanism exists, and you're acknowledging it exists. Now, show me something that ever popped into existence without... that just bang. It's where do you get the idea that intelligent design is making things change into things? Like, where are you getting that change?
Because the cell and the DNA molecule act like computer processors.
That is a metaphor.
That's not a mechanism. That is not a mechanism that you're demonstrating. Please demonstrate how intelligent design acts upon any biological organism to make it change into something else. Where have you ever seen that?
The changes occur based on the DNA code. It's not just a random change.
Right.
Yes, you're describing evolution.
That's correct.
No, that's not evolution. You can't just say it's evolution.
No, you said before that you agreed that that what I was describing was, quote, microevolution. It is those populations changing.
We're actually out of time. Feel free to call back and continue this with Matt another week, or with me if
And
I'm
as far
on.
as I know, there's not a debate list for Craig. I think that it's just about
not
PhDs.
currently. Oh, there was a question about whether Craig was like dodging Matt specifically,
And
and
no, I'm
he
not
just
aware of
has a
anything like
general
that.
policy against. Okay, that's our show. Bye.